you with my bare hands!
I think he just took you on with his bare hands too. So I want to take on a bit of a different tone for this terrible episode. Typically, the kind of movies we cover in this series are so obviously bad. Terrible just from looking at the visuals on screen. But this movie, I think, is a little bit different. This movie isn't absolutely awful, but it is a Pixar movie. And with that comes a certain degree of expectations in quality, and this movie massively underwhelms the Pixar audience. It's a mediocre movie. Touted as the worst Pixar movie at the time, thankfully now Pixar's made all sorts of stinkers to pad out the bottom line, and so I want to dig into this movie with a more analytical eye to see why this movie was touted as so bad. What makes this movie a terrible Pixar movie? And though I'm sure there's probably a warmer response to this movie now a good few years have passed, 11? Let's look into the world of Pixar's terrible Brave movie. Now, this first scene of the movie is a very simple introduction to our main characters. Merida is a young lass, joyful and energetic, with a strong connection to her mother. The relationship that'll be key to this entire story. The music is brilliant, unabashedly Scottish. Merida desires to shoot a bow and arrow, and her father gives her her very own one, eager to teach a skill she's invested in. And then a minute and a half in, we come to our first gripe.
A bow, Fergus? She's a lady.
This is the real plot. No, not the pinch. That's a whole other can of worms. Pulling back onto the full context here, this is Pixar's 13th movie after 17 years in the industry, and only now is this their very first female protagonist. Obviously, that's pretty late, but it's better than nothing, right? This is 2012, so things were still kinda early days in a lot of ways, yet also a prime time of a new feminist wave. Regardless, this is their first, and the plot is all about gender roles, which immediately fatigues your story and becomes counteractive, as pointing out the unusual choices only acts to highlight that these roles are standardized in the first place. As we'll come to see, Merida as a character and the through-line plot becomes stunted because the film isn't dedicating itself to good storytelling, just anti-traditionalism. But doing so makes it traditional again. But we'll get more to specifics as we see them. Anyway, Merida spots some wisps, father apparently doesn't believe in magic, and suddenly, a bear appears.
Come on, you!
And so we jump ahead in time with a long sprawl of narration against some admittedly beautiful landscapes. It's good for 2012. And the accents in this movie are so Scottish. It's great for representation, but I do wonder if maybe that had an effect on the underdoggedness of this movie. Being a less standard protagonist and practically every character with somewhat thick accents, especially to those unfamiliar with it. This movie, at some angles, is trying to be different. It's trying to be not Disney by having such an atypical lead who's both Scottish and female. And once we learn the rest of the family traits, we learn...
I'm the princess.
Yes, this is a princess movie as well. Quintessentially Disney adjacent. In some sense, this makes sense, being the cousin company that is Pixar under the Disney wing, wanting to make a related but different aesthetic. I'm sure that won't be mocked sometime later. But also, it plugs your first female lead right into the typical role they've practically only had in animation up to this point. And we'll have to compare against all of Disney's greatest because of this tag. Through this montage, we go on to see Merida's queen mother teaching her all the ways of being a princess, a lady. And it is really heavy-handed. Obviously, it's the theme, but it's so... But looking at it now, I really like all the Scottish idioms they managed to cram into the dialect, but just in keeping with pointing out the female gender role, now we're turning to stare and gawk at subverting it.
Once in a while, I don't have to be a princess.
Now, I haven't seen this movie since it came out, really, so I was fully expecting us to roll right into the archery scene, no? It's like the most memorable part of the movie, but no. The one day she's talking about is in fact just a day off, it seems. Showcased to us with one big montage of her going out and about, doing her thing. Everything skill-based or regularly associated with masculinity. Alrighty then, it's still a great display of character. Landscape and lighting, again, is absolutely stunning. None of these skills are really gonna come back. Not the climbing. And it's even got a lyrical song to it. And since jukebox musicals weren't so popularly successful back in 2012, I can really like it. Sometimes the song choices for these movies are big pop culture ease fests, but Pixar typically goes for much more specific and slightly niche musical discography, and I can just really enjoy it. This movie starts off with a lot of potential and a clear expertise in storyboarding, but it's just the way it develops over time that leaves something to be missed, it seems, as the day eventually comes to a close and we follow up with a family dinner scene.
Biggest bear you've ever seen.
So Father Fergus is foreshadowing the villain, the three Gremlin brothers are just being chaotic, and of course the mother continues to berate Merida for every non-princessy thing. The dynamics are there. Somewhat of a dysfunctional family, but now with a royal twang. Until, finally, the plot comes into play, with Mother declaring the news that they've brought upon Merida.
Lords are presenting their sons as suitors for your betrothal.
It's Pixar baby's first exposure to royally arranged marriage. Probably the first I saw on screen. And I guess tackling the subject Disney has tried to hide from for decades. It's frustrating, it's kinda easy storytelling, but it does have some nice direction spliced in there with Fergus's contributions and the actions incorporating into the borders of this scene. One of the lines even directly sounds like the same format as The Incredibles.
What? You just cheated, Eleanor.
Is that a good thing, actually? I think what also doesn't help necessarily is that every character seems so stupid or ignorant. The fact that the parents are so surprised that their clearly rebellious child isn't thrilled about a forceful tradition adds to another element of frustration this story brings up, rather than a satisfying story watching experience. But then again, ignorance is kind of the point with the Queen Mother. Frustrating characters still could make a frustrating experience if they don't get their comeuppance though. At least there's still some background intrigue to lighten the mood. What follows next is then a quick scene of Queen Eleanor coming into Merida's bedroom, berating her and giving a quick exposition dump about the ancient kingdom, and how one of the four princes chose to dominate the lands for himself, forging their own paths. So she links the devastation of a kingdom from a ruthless dictator to Merida wanting to not get married on her path. It's maddeningly nonsensical, and just an excuse to drop some story. Not at all the scene I would stitch to the quality of a studio like Pixar.
Ugh, Merida, it's marriage. It's not the end of the world.
But actually, the follow-up scene is way better. It's another bedroom scene of Eleanor and Fergus together, where they mimic the perfect conversation as Merida mimics her own outside at the same time, splicing together the two sides of the arguments in a far less emotionally wobbly way from before. The perfect demonstration of their miscommunications in a way that is both brilliant direction and storytelling. Shackled only by the fact that I don't think anyone's really divided on the opinions here. We all pretty much agree that the Queen is in the wrong, right? So to split this argument in half doesn't necessarily work against general audiences.
Understand if you would just listen. Listen.
And so here it is. This is the most iconic scene of your movie. It's Merida actually being up on a pedestal. The most stark boys versus girls, girl power in animation at the time. It's Merida choosing her own fate via her own talent in marksmanship. But first, here's a preview of the suitors and Merida getting into a suit.
It's too tight. It's perfect.
And so the four clans all come together. So we're about 15 minutes into this movie already. All of these events that I remember are actually taking place way later in the runtime than I thought, and maybe that's an unnoticed part of the pacing, but this next sequence is all about the boys. And it is lengthy, being a full-on 5-minute scene of essentially character introductions, but it's pretty well done. These characters are all comic reliefs, bringing something different to the table to look at and laugh towards. Is there something to be said is problematic when your story that's clearly meant to be all about the empowerment of your female lead being warped by the fact that there exists no single well-put-together man so as to suggest that women only stand above those when the other gender role fails at expectations in all directions? Whereas a more refined brush of character writing that highlights everyone as their best form would be more effective for the message being told? Maybe, but it might be easy to point out the slightly outdated nature of the men's character designs as being built to laugh at them because they're thin, fat, and ugly, but it still somewhat works for the story. Merida is uninterested in any of them, yet they're likably funny to us. They bickering and bash, fights galore, and Queen Eleanor stands as the one thing that can bring them all into shape. And there's great highlights all around this scene. Here's a highlight reel of the best bits from this scene.
To announce the arrival of the large who was besieged by 10,000 Romans.
And all our deed. If he was a wee bit closer, I could lob a caber at him, kin.
Though looking at it, some of the gags are kind of safe too. Of course, you put in a girly scream and a nipple twist in the middle of what's meant to be a battle of the men. And I think as a Brit, I've really come to appreciate the Scottish details in there, especially since I've lived in Edinburgh for 4 months total over the years since this came out. Anyway, the scenes come to a conclusion as we learn that all firstborns are in the running for Merida's hand, including the firstborn of the 4th clan in mind, herself.
That the challenge be determined by the princess herself.
Archery!
What follows is a brief montage of more showmanism for this festival event before the archery bit. And you all know how this goes, right? This is just brilliant through and through. From the presentations to all types of skills and reactions from the boys.
Oh, that's attractive.
Merida physically having to shed her feminine restrictions.
Curse this dress!
And of course, just the presentation. Not just doing a Robin Hood, but bullseyeing all 3 targets too. It's just a brilliant piece. Nothing terrible here.
Feast your eyes.
And now we're almost at the defining part, the really juicy part, when things all go downhill. It's not long now anyway. First, you have Queen Eleanor scolding Merida once again in another scene that's totally not exhausting to have to see before. But this time scaling up, with Merida slashing the tapestry, calling her a beast, and Eleanor throwing the bow into the fires. Oof. But at least she recognizes she's gone too far this time. And then Merida makes a deal with the witch, guided here by wisps, desiring a way to change her fate, magic to stop an arranged marriage. That's certainly a spin. And the demonstration of the witch's antics are also top-notch. From the slow reveal of the broom,
Rare prize. Your broom!
to the personalized knife barrage,
Every carving.
the logic of the doors.
You never conjure where you carve. Very important.
Hey, that's a sex reference! And of course, the references. From Sully, since this witch is obsessed with bears, and the cancelled new cameo appearance. All to filter out into a single kick, which, if delivered to the Queen, is said to change Merida's fate. All good so far, to be honest. Can't believe we're nearly halfway through this movie to reach this point, though. Is that poor, slow pacing, or good, since this is actually the good bit? So Merida returns home, Fergus is entertaining the lords, and she feeds her mother the cake. And if you hadn't seen the premise of the movie, you wouldn't be too strange for thinking the Queen's just been poisoned and about to die.
Mum? So I'll just tell them the wedding's off then?
But then yeah, she turns into a bear. For me as a kid, this is when the movie lost me. I don't want a bear story. In fact, characters being turned into animals is a very, very done thing. Bears especially. I used to go to sleep to the VHS of Brother Bear. There's no way in comparison that this is gonna live up to that movie, especially because both the bears can speak. Brother Bear at least takes it one step forward, and why even is this a bear story? Sure, the witch is obsessed with bears, so that's where that comes from, but as a love letter to Scottish heritage and folklore, why a bear? They're not really prevalent as a myth. Sure, there's mild signs they existed in the lands once, with Pictish stones showing them and bear carvings being found near Lancashire, but like, it doesn't match. There's a bear god and goddess, but that's more of a Welsh thing. There's a tale of King Arthur dreaming about a bear once before a battle with Rome, and there is one folklore about the brown bear of the Green Glen, so then why is the mother a black bear? There's so much more Scottish lore to hop from. Loch Ness Monster, Kelpies, the water horses, or Selkies, shape-shifting seal people. At least wisps appear somewhat, as spunkies apparently, on trails where funeral carts commonly pass. Lovely. I'm just so surprised that it's not more magical and fantastical. But I'm getting lost on myself. And so on top of rehashing a very common plot point over a very generic anti-feminine theme, now the plot is all to become balanced on miscommunication, failing to address what's going on to create a conflict between king and queen. I think I just always hated these kind of movies. But all these shots are a great testament to the lighting prowess in technology going on at the back end of Pixar productions. It looks nice at least. And it comes to a nice end for this bear chasing sequence as the triplet boys get involved to act as a red herring against it all. And so after more shenanigans, eventually they escape. The men left cornered on a roof and the ladies unsuccessfully trying to return the magic out in the wild. As the witch has left and they have a deadline before this is permanent, with the only remedy being to
mend the bond torn by pride.
Yeah, okay, you get it. This movie is all a relationship one about the rift between mother and daughter. Except, the display of it all also only gets more muddied because one of your characters cannot speak anymore. And I think maybe that too is a real detriment to really reaching the emotional core that this movie is trying to evoke. At least in Brother Bear, they're both bears and can communicate to each other. Whatever. They're really in it now. And have to somehow resolve everything in just 30 minutes. 30 minutes? Is there seriously just 30 minutes of the movie left? What? And since our bear can't talk, we're instead gonna get flashbacks of when the times were good instead. Though even then, it is 15 seconds long and mostly singing. Emotionally, a bit of a dud. So it's the next day now, and though you could probably string an idea together by, I don't know, keeping the bear hidden, returning home by yourself, telling your dad while he's not bear crazed that you've accidentally turned his wife into a bear, and then bring them over to reunite knowing the ailment. But instead, Merida's gonna spend the entire time it takes to cook a pizza in the oven attached to the bear by the hip to just artificially keep the pseudo-conflict going. But it's the point of the movie where they quickly need to start seeing eye to eye. And now Merida's use for a weapon doesn't seem so unnecessary.
Princess should not have weapons.
But is this really them getting closer? I think there's something to be said about how successful a mute character works in the robotic noises made from WALL-E when compared to just constant grunts and moanings coming from the snout of a giant bear. But hey, at least there's somewhat of an element of teamwork now. As we now lead into yet another montage to fill the gaps of storytelling. I totally get why the structure is as it is, but it's noteworthy all the same. Until eventually, Eleanor just ups and leaves after some point, having us trail her into the reveal of...
Is that you?
She's turning into an actual bear of some sort, corrupted by the magic. It's not all happiness, of course. And right on cue, the wisps make a reappearance. And after more padding of Mother Bear going crazy, attacking them or something, eventually they calm themselves down and just follow them. On to the lands of lore! Since there is another tale this movie wants to tell us, all about Mordu, as has been hinted by Fergus and the witches several times. Somehow attached to an ancient kingdom, and yet it's right next door. They come to find the old kingdom from the old tale, all about that old prince that wanted to claim all of the kingdom for themselves rather than sharing with their 3 other brothers. Sure, now there's a story thread in all that, but they try to stitch it in with the current day with...
Split, like the tapestry.
And I just don't think it works, honestly. Even if, magically, that is the reasoning behind both stories, I just think it feels a little bit forced for Merida to come to this conclusion, and so soon, too. At least make it be a bear revelation. I should be the one far more invested on that whole thing. Merida's not even shown a sign of remorse for it yet. And then they go on to stitch every other conclusion to us immediately.
Fate be changed. Of 10 men. The spell. It's happened before. The prince became...
And I mean, come on. Mother just became a bear. We just woke up, and now we have full conclusions over lore and every bit. It's just way too fast, nowhere near satisfying, and kind of simple too. You know, it's not much of a revelation either.
More do.
But right on cue, there he is. Ensue the real tension with a real bear. Malicious even as a human. Where of course Merida escapes and they run away together out of this little cubbyhole. You know, I think subconsciously my biggest rational fear is bears. They are my go-to monster in my nightmares for some reason. I blame watching Back to the Future 3 as an impressionable young kid. And so, the two come to the conclusion of everything. Staying too long under this spell turns you into a real bear, and they need to get back to the castle to heal the bond. Of the tapestry, of course. Sure is lucky this is built out of fabric as opposed to the stone that I guess Mordu had to deal with. Leading us into a sequence, now that it's dark out again, of sneaking a bear into the castle walls. Tension for tension's sake, rather than following logic. Leave the bear outside, Merida. The boys, meanwhile, are having a 4-way brawl out in the central hall that the bear needs to somehow get past. So, the plan they come up with is for Merida to infiltrate, and while you can see an element of character building going on there, with Merida finally mastering the ability to project to her fellow peers...
That's right, let's see her.
Shut it!
The rest of this sequence is, once again, just kinda done before. It's being a distraction and talking to a crowd as you sneak behind them all. And even then, with the layout of the room, This should still be impossible. Line of sight's going in all direction with Merida in the center. Plus, there's a spiraling staircase here. No amount of bear taxidermy is gonna make this scene make sense, make it compelling, or make it new. This is a rehash. Oh, but okay, at least they take this scene in a completely different direction. So, they pause halfway through. Instead of being distraction talk, Merida properly focuses on her words, and the bear just stops moving once inside. But there's some messaging here.
And I know now to amend my mistake.
Don't really think it's earned. Same how on the other side of things, the bear is now miming words for Merida to say, and those words being the exact words her daughter wants to hear. What have we done this movie? Become bear, woke up, had food, see bear. Now we conclude. I don't see how the mother came to this solution in any regard. Merida's caught one fish. Boys be damned. Plus...
And find love. In our own time.
Well, how did the bear mime that one? But with the mother-daughter relationship solved in about 12 hours, the boys all head out, as the two get back to the tapestry. And after briefly fumbling around, Fergus is randomly back, readying up to progress the plot by only now spotting the post-bear disaster that is Merida's room. Hasn't an entire day gone past? Has he really not checked up on her this entire time? Well, at least he cares about his wife now. So he comes barging in just as Eleanor has warped back into bear mode. It's a fight, and thankfully the bear wins. As much as killing the father would be a very grim fairy tale ending. And so as Eleanor comes around, riddled with guilt, she runs away. And on one hand, it leads to a nice little gag. And on the other, it's unendingly frustrating. As while this entire movie we've had to deal with one person just not listening to the other, then us not being able to listen to one of them, now the other parent does the exact same thing, unnecessarily going out of their way to...
I'll not risk losing you too.
No, Dad! Just listen to me!
lock Merida in her room as well. Ugh. This movie is just unsatisfying. No dopamine to be seen anywhere, really. The bear hunt begins. But hey, I like the little wet texturing they have on the walls. That's some nice technical work there, Pixar. And the first real emotional moment for Merida, as she has her Disney princess tantrum moment. But it's okay. The day can always be saved. By sewing. That might not have been intentional, or maybe it was because it's compromising on the argument, but I don't think that's quite the slam dunk Pixar thought it was for their first female-led protagonist movie. Also, the triplet boys are bears now. Again, it's been a full day. They woke up in the morning earlier. Does Fergus just neglect his kids when the boys are around? Regardless, for the next few minutes, it's a montage of actions. As the maid is trying to escape from the bear cubs, the bear is running through the forest, Fergus is chasing said bear with the lads on their night out, and Merida is hunting for a needle and thread. I mean, it's activities, but it's not really gripping, especially since there's minimal actual clash. King and Queen are never seen in the same shot, or even location really, at the same time to build the tension. We're just watching the lukewarm sequence unfold. Pixar perfected this idea much better in Monsters University. So let's just get to the end. Everything's all culminating to the climax, which is in 10 minutes time, by the way. Merida's with the triplets, they're on a horse chasing the lads are chasing Queen Bear, and Mordu pops up at some point. The wisps pop up to guide Merida away from Mordu and up to everybody, as we of course end up surrounded by those mythic stones once again. As Eleanor is cornered, strung up, and Fergus is ready to make his final avenging blow. And Merida is here to save the day. Very lucky all the lads wanted to keep the bear alive only for Fergus's hand, but now the two fight, and somehow Merida wins. In a direct clash of strength with their swords pushing towards each other, it just seems a little unnatural that she can overpower this giant brute of a dad. At the very least, the real kicker has a line of logic to it though.
I'll not let you kill my mother.
But as the boys come in to really sell the truth to the dad, because he would only ever listen to fellow men, Mordu appears. And all the boys charge into battle, and it completely demolishes them. Of course it would. These men are all idiots, and it specifically has the strength of 10 men.
I'll take you with my bare hands!
I think he just took you on with his bare hands too. Merida then gets involved with her measly arrows, and the bear delays her death for some reason to have the real reason we're here. The bear fight, in which it's not really much to look at either. Yeah, the animals are fighting, but it's not like the choreography of teleporting doors or supers or anything magic related. That and the doors even works for this world, but it's just happy slaps. And for some reason, Mordu has a real obsession with Merida. I don't think this is explained. It's just so Eleanor can get in the way more and activate her motherly strength that overpowers even the strength of 10 men. Is that it? Again, Pixar, I don't think that's quite the slam dunk you were hoping for, even if it is a real and phenomenal event. And it all comes to a close. How do you beat a super buff human turned bear? With the most classic and standard end to a fight. Environmental crashing. One that's very directly indicated so that you know the end before it gets there. So dumb of a solution, even an animal could have worked it out. And that's your it. Time for a thin shaving of 5 minutes to wrap everything up, but I guess there's not really much depth to wrap, hence why it's so slimmed down. Mordu becomes a ghost and it turns out to be the guiding wisps this whole time, not that they really address it or talk about it. The deadline for the spell is coming up, so Merida panics, and it's meant to be an emotional scene as all the regret finally comes down on her, but it's still pretty mild. Merida isn't that cryy, and the bear can't emote. Like, look at this and tell me it's not bland, especially the bear.
Did this to you, to us?
But after that total pit of despair, leading us to believe a bond hasn't been mended, the sunrise hits them, the music being lovely and all, and I guess the sun needed to see the stitching first to come into effect, or something like that. Because with no animation needed for a satisfactory transformation, it's just...
Mum, you're back!
After how many hours unable to speak, still she cannot find the words, I guess. Pixar finally taught this female character the lesson to shut up. Is that the... No, that can't be right. It's over, and that hand in the corner of the frame could never live up to the expectations Pixar thought it was going to bring emotionally.
You changed.
We both.
And of course the dialogue had to tell us they changed, because otherwise we wouldn't have believed that they'd actually had any developments. And so everyone's happy. Well, we don't really hear much of an opinion on the lads. They just gawk at the naked queen for a moment. After making sure she's unable to speak for 40 minutes, now they sexualize her once she's back. I'm definitely reading too far into this, but this movie somehow made it kinda easy, and that's worrying. But now we hop to the epilogue.
I call a wee naked Bobby.
The triplets are causing mayhem, the lads are leaving, all with their little micro gags as the ladies make a new tapestry and ride horses into the wild. Yeah, I guess there's really not much to wrap up, is there? Everyone left.
You only have to be brave enough to see it.
Roll credits. Oh, I guess they did. This movie was hounded on when it came out, and I can kind of see why. As a kid, I didn't like the direction the story went with the bear stuff, and even now, I don't really get it. If it's inspired by Scottish folklore, surely you'd go for something more fantastical? Every other plot thread has already been trodden. It diminishes its first female protagonist by making it so obviously about that, whilst trying to be a Disney princess alternative, and it all comes out as just background fodder. No incredible Pixar-y moments. Maybe the table? And even then, they've done the table better before. Thankfully, Pixar would go on to make 5 more films with female protagonists so far, much better constructed than this one. Elemental is perfect, Turning Red at least touches on it a little better, but still gets some backlash. There's Incredibles 2, that also kind of just points it out, but it's set in the 50s, so maybe that makes more sense. Inside Out is brilliant, and there's Finding Dory. It's still 5 out of 15 from Brave onwards, but this movie wasn't as terrible as some of our other terribles have been. Just very bad for that Pixar label. And during a very politically active time, good old 2012. But that Pixar shine lingers through in the undertones, so maybe we'll leave this medieval tale in the past. For now, my name's been Daz, you didn't really care, and I'll see you in a bit.